Hello and welcome. Welcome to Leadership with Purpose with Swati. I'm here with Tom today. This is our very second episode. And as we found out in the first episode, the importance of facility management, I want to dig deep with Tom today, who is an expert leader in facility management. He's created some very high impactful and performance teams, and he truly understands the synergy between people and technology and how does that impact facility management. Welcome, Tom. Thanks for being here. I truly appreciate the time you're taking to be here with me and sharing your insights with our listeners.
Swati, it's my pleasure. As it's an honor to be with you and your group and what you're doing in the space that you're in. So thank you for that.
Thank you. The pleasure is mutual. Let's dig in.
Sure.
I often like to start with and understand that, the facility management is really the backbone of all businesses. And some of the most well-run businesses, they don't even know that they have facility management, right?
Right.
And still, it's undervalued. People don't want to invest in right people and technology when it comes to facility management. And I really want to hear your thoughts and experience about this.
Yeah, I always feel like it's the ugly redheaded stepchild of the group, right? Nobody wants to
Yeah,
spend that money there. It's
right.
not sexy to say, "Oh, I spent money on my facilities plan or my
Mhm.
facilities management group." And a lot of times, I think it's looked at as just an expense, and I
Mhm.
don't think they see the value and what it brings to the rest of the operation. Um, you certainly can tell the difference when you go into an operation that is not clean and it's not organized and things are not operating properly. It automatically gives you the impression that the business isn't running well. You know, you want me to invest all of this money and ideas, yet you can't run your own shop in your own building, you know?
Yeah, that's so true. But it's also it's also the struggle, right? Like how we want to bring efficiencies, and especially in the world of facility management, there are three key drivers, which is bring efficiency in the operations, employee experience. We want to bring in our employees back to work and give them a great experience, and really, how do we take key decisions based on the analytics, right?
Yeah.
And how does that happen if you don't manage your facilities well and you don't have the right technology, right?
Yeah, I've always had this easy, simple formula that has led to tremendous amounts of success.
Uh-huh.
It's people plus process plus the applicable technology always equals success. And it's very interesting now because you're seeing a lot of folks that were working from home and now there's hybrid
Hmm.
work and now they're getting rid of remote work and you've got to come back to the office. And
Yeah,
I had so many folks reach out to me, Tom, how can we get people back in the office? What can we do? And there's no foosball table, no ping pong table that's going to bring people back to work because it's just so nice to be at home. Or
mhm.
I want to take my dog out at noontime, or I want to be home when my kids come home from school. No amenity that you have in the office is going to replace that. It's just not.
That's so true. And that's the new world, right? That we've seen that we can be as efficient as possible at home, but we can also have a better work-life balance and we can be there for our kids in the middle of all the work chaos, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also think too, I'm all for remote work, depending on what the role is. But
Hmm.
I think really what we miss is, we're pack animals. We love to be with people.
Right.
And you just can't change that connection of in-person connection time. Um, Sometimes things get said. That water cooler talk is real. That does happen.
That's true.
You bump into people in the elevator. You bump into people at lunchtime. Things
Hmm.
get said or things get mentioned that don't get mentioned outside of that. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And I truly believe in that, the connection we need to form with our colleagues, the relationship we need to build, it's not just with customers, it's not just with partners, it's with our teams, right? We
yeah,
need to have trust. We need to feel like we belong to something and we're doing something just greater than ourselves than just sitting in our home and being on the computers, right? It's
yeah,
so
and
much more.
I think that's part of the leader's responsibility too, right?
Hmm.
My job is to learn what your why is and how do I connect your why to the why of the organization. I can't do that if I really don't know you. You know,
Absolutely.
one of the philosophies I've had all these years too that I think has really helped make me a success in this area is I never just cared about people for 8 hours a day that they were working. I cared
Mhm.
about them 24 hours a day. What's going on in their entire lives, right? And how you can match up and make those things fit within your work time group. So that make sure that you're listening, you're empathetic, you understand what's going on in the entire picture, not just that 8 hour sliver, you know.
That's amazing and that's beautiful. And that really is a good segue into the next question that I had, that you built and led some very high performing teams. What's your leadership philosophy when it comes to team building?
You know, I've always considered myself a people over everything leader. And if you do that, if you focus on the people, it always works. I don't know why it's such rocket science. You know, it's so interesting to me. All these years, they like, what's your secret? What do you do? Like, what do you bring to the table? I focus on the people, and you know, I've done a lot of cleanup work over the years too,
Mhm,
Swati. You know, they fly you in, they're like, oh my God, this account's going down. We're not doing well. Services are off. We need you to go in and assess what's going on. Oh, usually in the first 4 hours, I can figure out what's going on. And 95% of the time, the leader needs to be moved. It's the leadership that is not focused on the people. And that's the biggest concern.
Tom, I missed the last part of it. You said 90% of the time the needler needs to be.
Oh, 95% of the time, the leader needs to be replaced. It's the leadership. And that's where it all stems from. And the funny thing is when you show up, Swati, usually the leader is, hey, I don't know why you're here. Everything's fine. Everything's good. And then as soon as you announce who I am and what my role is, there's
Mhm.
usually a line outside my door very quickly because everybody wants to come in and tell you what's going on, you know?
Right. Oh, that's amazing. And so true, right? That you can lead great teams and you can have all everything that you need, technology, people, but if you're not leading them to success, it usually fails. Right?
Yeah, and I also think there's a platform for that, right? Communication is so important. And I always say communication, communication, communication leads to relationship, relationship, relationship. And that's what trust is based off of.
Mhm.
If you can gain and have those three things, your team is going to be amazing. They will run through brick walls for you if you have those three things.
Yeah, that's so true. So when you're hiring people for facility management, what are the traits that you look for?
You know, it's interesting. A lot of people are always looking for experience in that particular item. Like they want an expert in whatever it is. And depending on the role, of course, right? But the thing to me, it's always the attitude and the adaptability are the first two things I'm looking for. I've had a lot of success hiring military folks over the years. And people
Mhm.
will say to me, oh my God, what are you going to do? This guy was an infantry guy. He's not going to know what to do. I'm like, you're overlooking the skills that he does have, right? He has team leadership skills. He knows what logistics looks like. He knows how to act within a team and within a time framework. You're missing the attributes that make him successful. We can teach him how to do digital print. We can teach him how to run a warehouse management system. That stuff's
Mhm.
easy. You can't teach leadership and the attitude and the adaptability piece. You just can't.
That's beautiful. And I have a personal experience with that. Our customer support manager, he's ex-military, and we hired him, and everybody were like, "You're hiring an ex-military who was working with one of the customers, but we do very different work here." And my thought was, he's gone through war, he's been in military. You can teach him anything and everything, and the attitude those people have is amazing. They will, they know their mission, they know their work, and you can just They will beautifully create a team and be with the customer in and out. You don't even have to ask them, right? They
Yeah.
just know it. Once
Yeah.
they commit to something, they're on it, and they can just trust them completely.
And it's interesting from my experience too, the military folks, they find corporate life so much easier.
Yeah, that's true too. That's so true. So, I want to talk about how do you balance efficiency versus cost, right? Like, I hear so many times we need to be cost effective, we need to be efficient, so we are going to cut on the technology, right? We are going to cut on people. But does that really bring efficiency?
Yeah.
What's your experience?
So, I always try to tell clients, or when I come up with stuff, I look at good, better, best, right?
Hmm.
Solutions. This is good enough to get it done. And this is what the cost and the people cost is, along with the technology.
Hmm.
This is the better part, right? And then this is the best part. And then give them the ups and downs of what they're trading off and exchanging at that point. I always say it's never a matter of no, it's always a matter of how much. So it's depending on what the goals are for the group. It when I've taken over clients as well, when we win big deals, the first thing I always want to ask the client, why did you pick us? It's a
Hmm.
telling question, right? Because it's
Yeah.
different than what the sales guy is going to get versus what the operations guy is going to get. And they may say, oh, I picked you because you were cost effective. Okay. So what does that tell you? I'm looking for cost savings. I'm looking for
Right.
efficiency, right? So you know where you start to drive your solution towards.
Right.
Other times it was about, oh my God, it's because of your experience. It's because of what you bring to the table. There's so many different solutions that you can do for us. This is just the beginning, right? That
Hmm.
tells you everything is open for review. The customer is looking for all kinds of solutions to be involved in. So I love that good, better, best framework. I think it really helps figure out where clients want to go and where they want to be in terms of what's really important to them.
That's great advice. Thank you. I think our listeners will really benefit from that.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of a large scale implementation for facility management where you stepped in and you needed to change the technology, the people, you needed to do perform functions differently? How you went about it? How did you convince the management? And it was really successful.
Yeah, I've done a lot of huge implementations in my career. And the number one thing I always do first is break down the contract.
Hmm.
You need to know exactly what you're responsible for before you go ahead and try to put together the plan. And it gives you a lot of insight over to what was done on the analysis side of what the client thinks they're getting, right? So a lot of times it's break down the contract, answer those questions, and then the analysis and pre-install are so important because there's so many different stages. People think you jump from RFP to install. Yeah,
Right.
that's a recipe for disaster, right? You know, you
Yeah.
always want to go from RFP to then validating your questions and your assumptions with your analysis, right? Now that
Hmm.
usually costs more money. That means I need to
Right.
put a resource in ahead of time so that
Hmm.
they can make sure that they're starting to build some of the relationships with the staff. They start
Hmm.
asking the real questions of what's going on in the operation. You get a real lay of the land for what's going on within that grouping. And that is one of the things that we did for Meta and Facebook, right? We embedded somebody 60 days ahead of time as
Right.
the project manager, validating all the data and all the information, building the relationships, because that's the other key piece. When you're going into these opportunities, people don't know who you are. People
Hmm.
don't know what's going to happen. Are they going to take my knowledge and then get rid of me? What are they going to do? Where am I going to go? How is this going to happen? That person that's there for 60 days is that cheerleader that's getting in there and, oh no, we're excited to have you on board. This is going to be great. You wait to see this process, this process. And then also having the leadership team come in a little bit ahead of time as well to tour, to answer those questions, and then start to get ready. One of the things I always tell people is you never recover from a bad first day. Anytime you're going to install a new service or new implementation, if you fall down on day one, you never recover. No matter how
Hmm.
good you get later on, clients will always remember how you started and how you ended.
Ended. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
Yeah.
That is great, Tom. I'm learning so much just hearing all this, and I'm sure our listeners are getting a lot of it. I want to jump into the technology sector, right? Like, yes, you brought in the team. What decisions? How do you make a decision to invest in technology for when it comes to facilities? What have you seen as more helpful, or is it better to go in with the technology or make that decision later? And what drives your decision making?
A lot of times, due to the analysis and the assessments, I really do rely on the analysts to look at the data and see what's going
Hmm.
on. I like to be involved, though, from the director level to be able to see why exactly they may be picking a particular solution, and having the analyst break it down to me as well. Like, why did you pick this solution? What are you trying to get here? What is the client trying to see? And I think a lot of times people make that mistake and they automatically just go to the first technology that they know of or they've seen. I think it's really, really important. I try to get clients to delay the technology piece. Give us 60 to 90 days. Let's do the lift and shift first, right?
Hmm.
Let's get the solution in place. And while we're doing that, let's validate the data and what the true needs are while we look at the
Hmm.
different technologies. Now, sometimes you can do that, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you've got to make some decisions ahead of time. I find that when you're going to pick a technology partner, the best thing to do is to go out and visit their customers, go get the demos in person, see the product live, and ask those key questions. Wow, what are
Hmm.
the three things that you love about this technology? What are the three things you hate about this technology? What are the three things you wish this technology would do for you? And I think a lot of times that gives you a much better view overall over what solution's going to fix and fit right in. If you can, the other part is you can always do it in phases. Phase one, let's put the technology in its basic form, right?
Hmm.
Let's get the basics done. Let's get the platform in. Let's build up the process. And then phase two will come in the first 90 days. We can then take that next step if it's the correct next step, right? That way you're
Yeah,
still getting some data, you're getting validation, you're moving forward in the right direction. And you can make those shifts and pivots if you need to.
absolutely, absolutely. So, Tom, I think the current trend we see is like right when we were talking about people see facility management as an expense. So
Mhm.
the technology also becomes an expense. And oftentimes people say, okay, just get whatever is cheapest, right? Just build
Right.
in. And so I'm curious to hear your thoughts about how does that impact efficiency in the group? And does it really bring cost savings if you're not using the right technology?
It doesn't bring cost savings, right? It's always interesting to me that people don't realize they have the wrong technology until something happens. And
Hmm.
then, of course, everybody goes, why did this happen? How come we didn't know about this? Think about it. So you
Right.
buy a cheap technology that gives you the real basics, and you receive a prototype, and the
Hmm.
prototype was damaged. Nobody took a photo of it. Nobody did anything. And 3 months from now, someone calls you and says, oh my God, I didn't get this package, or we don't know what this is, or what's going on. And then you find the package, it's all damaged, client's upset, and the thing is worth gazillions of dollars.
Hmm.
Well, now
Yeah.
you got no proof that it came in broken. Nobody remembers that kind of stuff. Everybody thinks they'll remember, but
Right.
trust me, when you're
Mhm.
doing 5, 10,000 packages or documents or records management, nobody remembers the day-to-day stuff.
Absolutely.
So you need those tools to be able to capture that data the right way so that
Hmm.
you have what I'd like to call, you're looking at future damages you're taking care of. Because once you make mistakes like that too, that comes
Hmm.
back to haunt you, not only from your internal operations side, but then from your risk management side. They're like, what is going on with this department? We keep paying out all of these fees and all of this money and recoveries, and it just becomes just a circle that doesn't end.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And, I often, when I'm working with customers and we're talking about technology, and I said that don't just look at it as expense for your support structure, right? It's a strategic investment. You need, when you're receiving 10,000 packages a day, if you're missing a package that your CEO or someone who's working on a prototype and waiting for that for 6 months, they don't receive it, and you do not know where it is, nothing else will matter,
No.
right? All of you are going to stop doing what you're doing, and for the next 1 week, going to search that package that you will not find, and your department is going to be paying millions of dollars for that prototype that you did not receive, right? And it will become about those people, right,
Yeah.
who are receiving to not to who don't remember, and it's not really their fault, but we are not ready to make those strategic investments.
And it's just like you said too, Swati. People think, well, I'll just go, I'll hand log something. Susie will email them. Don't worry about it.
Right.
Oh, what do you do when Susie leaves the company and everything was in her email box, and now you've deleted her employee profile? Now you've got no history.
Right.
Or somebody spills coffee on your handwritten log. Now
Yeah.
you've got no records of that. And I did an analysis for a big technology company who will remain nameless. I went in and walked through this location, and they told me all these different horror stories that they would have all hands on deck days. I'm like,
Hmm.
what do you mean all hands on deck days? Well, when our CEO would sign contracts and they go off into interoffice mail and we couldn't find it, it was an
Hmm.
all hands on deck day because no one is
Wow.
going back to the CEO to ask him to sign the contract again, right?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just the little things that can really throw the whole up. Think about it. All
Hmm.
hands on deck days in 5 or 6 different buildings on a campus, all because of a piece of interoffice mail didn't get tracked or logged correctly. It's just
Yeah,
silly.
absolutely. And I have seen that I've been brought in, or technology gets brought in after a CEO or an important executive or a legal person has not received the mail and package, and it's costing companies millions of dollars, right?
Right.
That's when they realize. But again, it's the facilities is, if everything is running smooth, nobody notices until
Right.
something, it's not, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
always that thing.
Yeah, and I think certain verticals too that really, like your technology verticals, your government verticals,
Hmm.
your legal verticals, there's just a different level of emphasis on the documents and the packages because it's
Right.
just some things you just can't get back, you
Yeah,
know?
that's true. So true. So, Tom, I want to shift into leadership with purpose.
Sure.
And I know you read a lot about leadership, and I always really look forward to your thoughts on social media. And I'm really impressed, and I learn a lot from those. Can you share some of your philosophies in leadership with our listeners, and also some of the books that you read? I know you read a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. I think leaders are readers. It's your responsibility to stay up to date on a lot of the stuff that's going on. And also, when you're leading, not everything can be from your point of view. You need to understand other people's points of view as well. When I was younger, I mean, I have a couple of old school books that were great. When I first got into management, I never managed anybody else before. I was a really
Hmm.
good employee, but I never managed anybody else before. And of course, that's how I got promoted, right? Oh, Tom's great. Let's make him the manager. Now, I probably wasn't
Hmm.
qualified to be the manager, but they made me the manager.
Right.
So that weekend, I went out and bought Ken Blanchard's 1 Minute Manager. I love it. It's simplicity, right? At its best. Everything is a 1 minute at a time. 1 minute
Hmm.
goals, 1 minute connection, 1 minute feedback, 1 minute praise, right? It's very simple to get around. To supplement that, I did Stephen Covey's 7 Highly Successful People, right? And
Hmm.
if you remember back then, we used to have those binders. I used to buy that
Uh-huh.
binder every year. I used to have all those little tabs and all those things. But it did a great thing because it laid the groundwork for how I organized and how I had like this methodology over how I was going to handle these different things and how I was going to set them up for success. And very early on, I realized that it was always about the people. I thought, I'm just going to be a people leader. Like, I'm going to treat people well. I'm going to get to know them, and I'm going to accentuate their strengths and minimize their weaknesses. And that was my philosophy from the beginning. And I had a lot of success. And I would always hear these things. Oh my God, you're the best manager I ever had. You're the best leader I ever had. And I always took it with a grain of salt, Swati, right? Because what are you supposed to tell your boss? Oh, you're terrible. We hate you, right? So I never really gave much thought to it. And then probably in my 30s, I started to hear it more and more and more. So I started to ask the question, why? Why do you say that? And people would say, well, because you care about me, because you care about my family, because you're always thinking about how to make us better or how to put us in a position to win. Well, that's the real role of the leader, right? Put people in positions to win and have success and take care of them across the board. It's always very interesting to me when people enter leadership or management and they don't think that's their responsibility. Got news for you. You're not going to win. You're only as good as the people that you surround yourself with. And, you know, one other thing I saw early, Swati, is I watched a lot of leaders really pigeonhole some of their best people because they were like, oh, I can't lose that guy like that. He's too talented. And I'd be like, oh my God, no. Your responsibility is to get that person, promoted or get them to the next level or to keep them going instead of holding them back. They didn't look at it from that perspective, right? They didn't look at it. You're not doing the best advocacy for the person. Right. I've heard so many times you'd go in and you'd hear, oh yeah, so-and-so is a superstar. And God, if they ever leave, we'll never be able to win. And they'd say to me, well, you can't promote him. I'm totally going to promote him. We always do what's best for the person, not what's good at that particular role, because it's our responsibility to do that and to roll that. I think 2 latest books that I've read, if I had to make 2 recommendations, this one, Energize by Simon Ong. It's all about energy, putting your energy in the right place, bringing your energy, what brings you up the most. Because we all know, right? Isn't it great when you walk into a room and you feel that energy from someone? You feel the difference, right? That's what that book's all about. And Simon does a great job of breaking out a framework of how to bring the most amount of energy, not just to work, but to life in general. The second one I really love is this one, Lessons from Thought Leaders. I got this book from a coach, Jim Johnson, who is just amazing. He coached high school basketball for like 30 years and has just a tremendous background in leadership and handling parents and all the different things. It's amazing. But the book is a synopsis of all different leaders and what they went through or what's their best advice. So it's kind of like a best of the best, who's who of advice across the board. And there's all kinds of famous coaches in there. Les Brown is in there. Kevin Eastman's in there. A couple of the other baseball players. I mean, it's a little bit of everything for everybody. So it's almost like a coach's smorgasbord in a mall.
Great. I'm looking forward to reading these books. I totally added them in my list of spring reading. Great. And I'm definitely going to read them, and hopefully I'll ping you and we'll chat more about these books.
Yeah.
So Tom, I want to circle back and say that if there is any advice that you would like to give our facility managers, our community here, to say how to excel in facility management and leadership in general, I'll appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of what I talked about earlier, right? That formula is really simple. Don't overlook it. Focus on the people, the process, and the technology. Those 3 things, you will win every time. And it's very interesting. A lot of times what facilities managers will do when something goes wrong, they look at the person. They try to blame a person. I try to get them to unthink that. Think what's wrong in the process. It's not about the people, it's about the process. What made this person make this error or make this mistake? What's broken in the process that allowed that to happen? When you approach things from that perspective, you will see your teams will change as well, right? They don't feel like you're out witch hunting or trying to blame somebody, because what's the first thing you do? You get defensive. And then
Right.
you're not going to get the whole
Absolutely.
answer, and you're not going to get the truth. But if you
Right.
come at it from a process perspective, I think it changes the entire dynamic of the conversation. You know, when managers think they know the process, I always love this part too. I'm a big whiteboarder. I love whiteboards, right?
Uh-huh.
Managers will tell you, oh no, this is the process, blah, 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 and I would say, well, it doesn't quite add up. Something's not correct. You can go to a frontline employee and bring them into the whiteboarding session, and they go, oh no, that's wrong. You got to add this. This happened. Boom. Right. It's a very open indicator, and even better because then it opens up the collaboration. The frontline
Mm-hmm.
employee knows that they have a voice. They know that they're being heard. They're being engaged and asked the question, right? And then the managers learn something, right? And then they also learn to rely on that person maybe a little bit more, or maybe engage them in a different way, you know?
That's beautiful. And I love the connection and the psychology behind how to just be a better human and treat everyone fairly and respect, right? It's all about the connection and the relationship you build, right, with those people. And everybody is trying to do their job. And as you said earlier, right, that you're only as good as your team,
Yeah. And
right?
it's all about that clear communication, right? Now, listen, just because I'm a people over everything leader doesn't mean you can come into work and not do your job. I mean,
Yeah.
that's that there are real honest conversations you have with people,
Hmm.
but you have to have them. That's usually what happens is it's uncomfortable. People try to avoid it, and it just gets worse. It doesn't get better. I always say, if you have a cancer on your team, if you don't cut it out, it will spread. And if you don't address the issue, the rest of the team sees it, know what's going
Right.
on, you
Right.
know? And I can tell you, I've done some big installs where we've removed people fairly quickly.
Hmm.
And I've had lines of people outside my door to thank me. Oh my God, that guy has been here for 4 years. He has tormented this whole department, this, and this. Nobody ever did anything about it. Like, can you imagine? 4 years,
Hmm.
nobody ever removed the cancer.
That's so true. And sometimes it does take years to remove that, right? And because we are so afraid to have those hard conversations, or we are not equipped, right?
Right.
Even as leaders, we are like, we're not, it's an art to learn, right? That how can you be kind and empathetic to a person and still deliver a hard message and hold them accountable, right?
Right.
It's a muscle that you have to practice every day. And you're so right, the more we do it, the more clear we communicate it. Clear is kind, right?
Yeah.
And you just clearly tell people what's not working and what change is needed, right?
I
And
like what you said. Clear is kind. I think the other thing is consistency. If you're
mhm,
consistent in the message and you're consistent in the accountability piece, it will take care of a lot. You'll find that your staff starts holding other people accountable before you even need to get involved because you've already laid that groundwork and platform, you know?
absolutely. And I like to bring that to our kids as well, right? Like when we have little kids and we're raising them, if you hold them accountable and you clearly like give them very constructive feedback on this is working, this is not, they feel safe with you, right?
Right.
Because they know that you're telling them the right thing. And when they fail, you're going to support them because it's not that they don't know how to do it, they don't know how to do it yet,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So it's the same thing, right? It's work, life, home, balance, everything, right? People feel safe with you when you have an honest and open conversation.
I think so. I think one of the other things I've always enjoyed too, and it's part of human nature, right? Is you'll have staff that'll come to you and they resign, right? They're going to
Hmm.
leave, and they're expecting you to be angry with them or upset.
Right.
And I always say, well, what are you going to do? Where are you going? Well,
Hmm.
I always wanted to go back to nursing school. I always wanted to do this, and then I always thank them. Thank you for the time that you gave me. Thank you for being so great. And if there's anything I can do or it doesn't work out, please come back. I think I used to call it win back strategies. You can use win back strategies for clients and for staff. I used to sometimes go through staff that had left us. Sometimes staff leave us, 50 cents or $1, or somebody's going to go to a different account for whatever reason. I would have our person follow up with them in a couple of months. Hey, is the grass greener? How's it going? Are you enjoying it? Because they will never call you back and say, it's not working out, or I'm having a tough time. So at least you can open that gateway. And I've done that with some clients as well. Hey, I know you made the change. How is it going? Good, bad, or indifferent, right? And just keep that dialogue open, because we all know these contracts are short. 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. Just like we talked about earlier. Clients remember 2 things: the day you started, the day you left.
The day you ended. Yeah. That's great. That's a great end to our piece. Thank you so much, Tom. This was wonderful. I really had a lot of fun, and I've learned a lot, and so will our listeners. I always enjoy our conversations with you, and I hope to have you back on my podcast again.
Always happy to support you, Swati, any way I can. It's my pleasure and my honor. Thank you.
Thank you.